welcome everybody. Lovely to see you. So yeah, if we are going to spend some time muted, but then also we'll try some things unmute. So just stay close to the mute unmute button. And then a second thing that I just like to say in terms of housekeeping is that if you are not already in gallery view, I strongly recommend that. I think it feels much more of a group experience if we can all see everybody who has their cameras on. So if that's a possibility, just on the top right corner of your screen, gallery view, and ta-da, we are in a group conversation. So I work for Mac Makes Music, and I am one of the choir directors of the West Midlands Inclusive Choir, and I also have been leading some Come and Sing sessions. So the official theme of this talk that we are going to have this hour is sharing learning from our Come and Sing events, as well as the West Midlands Inclusive Choir, and this session will also include some vocal activities. So you knew what you signed up for. So I thought it would be good just to start with what is an inclusive choir. And the truth is that if you had asked me a year ago, what is an inclusive choir, or are choirs inclusive, I would have said yes. Everybody can come to a choir, everybody can sing, and I strongly believe that. Until someone asked me, well, what about people who can't come to a choir rehearsal, or people who are non-verbal, or people for whom singing is not really an option? Are your choirs inclusive? And I felt really silly suddenly, because I had never thought of that. I always thought choirs were for everybody. So when I started thinking about that, I realized that all the flaws that choirs as we had them had. And because this realization came during COVID time and we had started experimenting with Zoom rehearsals, I suddenly saw, and this again might feel very, very simple, but for me it was a game-changing moment, that Zoom rehearsals allowed people who wouldn't normally be able to be in a choir participate in that experience. And that felt like, what have we been doing so far? So suddenly, what happened at that moment is that I stopped considering Zoom rehearsals as a replacement for something that was great, as a bad replacement for something that we were really missing. And I started thinking that these were things on their own that had their pros and cons as the previous setup. But these are things that can be treated as a new way of doing things. And when I started thinking about that in that way, then I just started modulating my rehearsals and my practice, trying to give these new tools entity. I was like, okay, there are things that we don't have, but there are other things. There are plenty of other things that we wouldn't normally have in an in-person setting, and we do have in an online rehearsal. So for me, when I started doing that, my life changed, because I stopped being a sad choir conductor in COVID times that was just moaning because I couldn't make music and I couldn't have choirs, to suddenly finding new ways, fun ways of doing something new, and that I now think will survive the pandemic. Because since this offers things that in-person settings don't offer, I just think this will just live parallel to old school choirs, and it's not about replacing or anything, but there are things from this practice that we will then be able to apply to the old practice as well. In the same way that when we got pictures, people didn't stop painting. When we got photographs, no one stopped painting, and when we got recordings, people continue going to live concerts. So that's my big realization since I started working with inclusive choirs, and that is now transferred to choirs or singing activities on Zoom that are perhaps not necessarily aimed for people with disabilities, but it's just thinking about these tools as a great set of new tools, and finding out and trying to stretch the limits of these tools. So what I thought I could do, in case you haven't been in a choir Zoom rehearsal earlier, or you don't know what inclusive choirs are, I thought I'll just show you a 3-minute video that we have done with all the sound about inclusive choirs. in which MAC, the West Midlands Choir, is part of, together with the King's Singers and Together Productions and other choirs, we just made a video that we released in March the 1st for Zero Discrimination Day. And I just thought, just for you to have a look in case you haven't, so that then we can have a bit of a talk about that. So here it goes. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Cool. And you should start listening to it in a while. If you don't listen, please shout.
I'd like the world to sing in perfect harmony.
I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'd like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand and hear them echo through the hills for peace to wonderland. That's the song I'd like to hear. Sing it today. That's the song of apple trees and honey bees. Let the world sing today. Let the world sing today. Let the world sing today. Let it sing today.
Je voudrais apprendre au monde de chanter en harmonie parfaite.
Oyo Nzembo Nazoyoka.
Salam i Jamia al-Arab.
Chcę nauczyć się cały świat śpiewać w dokładnej harmonii.
I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. That's the song I'd like to see the world for once standing hand in hand. That's the song I'd hear through the hills for peace throughout the land. Peace throughout the land. Peace throughout the land. Peace throughout the land.
So that was I'd like to teach the world to sing. And as you saw, there was singing, there was playing. We call them sound makers. Any instrument or any elements that the participants want to use, that becomes their sound maker, and they are encouraged to use them throughout the sessions. You saw signing as well, so we sing and sign throughout the sessions. And you also saw the butterflies you saw were part of a workshop that they were made also by participants, and then they digitalized them and add them to the video. So just different ways to make sure that everybody has something to do that is according to their abilities, but also that represents some sort of challenge, because we all the time try to encourage people, to help people develop their abilities. It's not just doing what they know, but also being challenged. Yes, I will right now just add the link to the video on the chat. Thank you, Shana, for asking that. So in normal sessions, in normal inclusive choir sessions, we start by singing a hello song, and we make sure that we name every participant on screen, and that is a very important part of the rehearsal. And after that we do a warm-up, and today I won't sing the hello song, but I think we should all do a warm-up. So if this is possible for you and you are able, I invite you to stand up and let's all do a warm-up together. And anything I ask you to do, please just adapt it to whatever it is you feel best. So if you want to do this seated, or just adapt any of the things I suggest, by any means. So let's find our foundation first. So we can start rotating one ankle to one side and the other, and the other leg, one side and the other. Rotate your knees. And let's draw a circle with our hip, one side. And the other. Oh, Steve, that's some cool movements there. I can't do it that fast. Good. And now let's find a bit of a foundation. So feet parallel, hip width apart, aligned with your crest, with your hip crest, and also aligned with your shoulders. So just feel your arms really heavy and relaxed at the side of your body, and we'll just stretch them out. So up. Inhale, interlace your fingers, palms facing the ceiling. Exhale to your left. Your left. Yes, that left one, yes. Inhale up. Exhale to your right. Inhale up. And sigh. And feeling your shoulders pulling away from your ears. In through your nose. Blow out. In through your mouth. And hiss out. Get your hands a bit warm. And let's have a bit of a famous face massage. And neck. And shoulders. And tap, tap. As long as you can go, as far as you go. Down your legs. Fantastic, and shake it all out. Oh, nice, Shona. I like your movements. Can anybody think of any other movement that we could add to the warm-up? Something that you like doing? Just do it. No need to unmute. Just show us a movement. Okay, Shona is moving her arms, so I like that. Really cool for the shoulder blades. Any other? Marcos, I thought you had one. Ah, front. Cool. Oh, this is more like boxing. Lovely. And Una had a different one as well. Could you show us? Una, yeah. You were... No, where are you doing this? I thought I saw you doing this. Yeah, cool. Fantastic. And just freestyle it a bit. Cool. Now I will do some rhythms and I'd like you to repeat them after me. Tum, tum, tum. Tum, tum, tum. Tum, tum, ch. Tum, tum, ch. Tum, tum, ch, ch. Tum, tum, ch, ch. Tum, ch, ka. Tum, ch, ka. Ka, tum, tum. Ka, tum, tum. Tum, ch, tum. Tum, ch, tum. Tum, ka, ch. Tum, ka, ch. Tum, ch, ch, ka. Tum, ch, ch, ka. Fantastic. Now, because we have been on Zoom for a year, we are, I think, all a bit more used to a bit of chaos, and nobody is afraid when we are not synchronized. So I invite you all to unmute. We'll do the same thing. I do something and you copy it back. Tum, tum, ch.
Tum, tum.
Oh, that was super synchronized. Fantastic. Tum, ch, ka, ka.
Tum,
Ka, ka,
Ka, tum, ch.
ka,
tum,
Tum, ch, ka.
tum, ka.
Fantastic. So we call these echoes. Now I want us to have a conversation. So I will ask you something and I want you to answer something different. So with these three elements, tum, ch, ka, you can just play with them in any way you want, but we'll keep the same pattern, okay? So I do something and you do something different, and then I do something and you do something different, okay? And you'll all do different things. Can you give me a thumbs up if this is clear and we're ready to go? Fantastic, here I go. Tum, ch, ka.
Ka. Toom. Ka.
Ka. Toom.
Ka. Toom.
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 Ka. Toom.
Ka. 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 Toom.
Toom. Ka. Ka.
Toom. Ka. Ka.
Toom.
Ka. Toom.
Fantastic. Could you all please mute yourselves again? And can you give me a thumbs up if you can listen to this? Fantastic. So can we just freestyle it a bit? So it toom, ch, ka. Just play with it a bit. Experiment on your own. Toom, toom, ch, toom, toom, ka. Toom, toom, ka, ka, ch. Toom, toom, ch, toom, toom, ka, toom, toom. Carry on. And whenever you feel you have a nice rhythm, just unmute and show it. And just mute again when you finish. Absolutely free. Anybody can unmute at any point.
Toom. Toom. Ch. Toom. Toom. Ka. 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 Toom. Toom. Chicka.
We'll finish all together in 4, 3, 2, and stop. Yaha, fantastic. I think you should all give yourselves a round of applause. This was super synchronized. Excellent, fantastic. And you may all take a seat. So this is just some idea of the sort of things we can do. And I would like to ask you now 2 different questions, but just feel free to answer them or anything else that you want. But the first one is, how does this make you feel? So the activities we did, the warm-up, the rhythm, the unmuting, the improvise, how does this make you feel? And the second one is, how is this different or similar to an in-person setting? And let's just try and read the room. So if you want to unmute and talk, just check that nobody else is and just unmute and talk. No raising hands. I think given how synchronized we were in playing, I think we could be organized in speaking as well.
Well, that for me, that's totally my comfort zone, to be dancing around and hitting myself. I do quite a lot of body percussion, so I'm very happy and comfortable to be doing that rather than listening to somebody speak for too long. So all good from me.
I always get a little bit panicked as soon as there's some body percussion or in like rhythmical work, because I suddenly feel a little bit out of my comfort zone. So, but it's always a good reminder when you're out of your comfort zone, right? To that's how a lot of people we work with feel. So, yeah, that's really great to feel that. And I also like the fact that you introduced the like. We're all used to the mayhem. Let's just do it. We had to get over that quite quickly. So I think it's always good to just add that in there, even if it's just brief. Like just let everyone hear each other, and then yeah. So that was great.
I thought that the backing track really helped and sort of made you feel like you weren't quite so on your own. I think just making the sounds on my own, it was a bit strange, but actually, yeah, the backing track made me feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, it also kept some sort of flow going, didn't it, the backing track? Because even though ultimately we couldn't be in time, it still kept the momentum
yeah, it feels like we're all kind of part of the band then, doesn't it? If you're playing to the, but it's like instantly makes you feel like, oh yeah, I can do this. Yeah.
I think you got people involved right from the beginning, so that nobody was left feeling they were on their own in the room, and it brought people together really quickly. All the range of activities.
And comparing it to an in-person setting, what do you think? Did you feel like you were on your own, or did you? How was that similar or different to our old in-person settings?
I think for me, I'm just getting used to, like you say, we've been on Zoom for a year. I think I'm getting used to the technology to a degree where this feels like a nice connection with 12 other people who I can see and I know are there. Whereas a year ago it might have felt weird and disjointed. I think it feels sort of quite natural now and not not so much a big deal. I mean, obviously it's not the same, but I think we've just got used to it.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. Yeah, I agree. It's now it's much more natural than it was 1 year ago, definitely.
I've
I
been,
think
sorry, go Niall, that's fine.
I think as the years gone on that we've learned to do less talking as music leaders or instigators, and just people are more keen to just pile in and get on with it. And I think that comes across a lot more naturally than it did a year ago. Cutting down on the talking time that we put in. People don't want to be watching like a TV show. They want to be in it and doing it.
Yeah.
Regarding the balance between being on your own and being in a group, I think it's a nice balance. It can be struck there with the mute button.
And Shana, were you going to say something too?
I felt sorry. Sorry, we both at the same time. I also felt it was non-threatening in that if I didn't want to unmute, it was we were all doing it together. And then you said if you'd like to sort of, it was. I didn't feel I had to, and possibly just because I'm tired, I thought, well, and I'm sure everybody else is, and I'm just being a wimp. But I just sort of thought I'm just enjoying doing a little bit and watching what other people do. But it's a lovely setting that you can see everybody's enjoying it, and I think that just makes you feel really good anyway.
Which is probably the point.
There are one or two obvious drawbacks, like with the timing. But in a group rhythm activity, some people will be out of time anyway, and whatever groove you try and keep, if you're going to take turns like that, it's going to go out of time. So it's not a lot of difference really. And we're all facilitators, so I'm sure we could have kept in time, but in a real situation, it wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a way, like I've only just thought of this, but in a group, sometimes you get people who are really good at an activity. And if everybody else can see that they're really good, it might make them feel less, more inadequate. But on here, it's a level playing field. So nobody can tell if anyone's any good or not because it's all out of time and there's glitches and, so that's actually quite refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, Marcus, in some singing sessions for adults I have had participants telling me I would have never come to this if it was in person, but because I was on mute and it was on Zoom and I was in my living room, I joined and I sang. So again, this possibility of reaching to people who wouldn't normally have been able to enjoy the benefits of this, that doesn't only apply to people who are physically unable to come to a rehearsal or to participate. It's inclusive in a really broad sense. And I think we all here know and believe in the very, very firmly that everybody would be happier and that the world would be a better place if everybody could do more music. So our goal should just try and reach as many people as we can. And for that, this pandemic has been just wonderful, because it made us change the way in which we did things, and we have a whole different set of possibilities. So reflecting on this, I was thinking at the beginning, and what happens when you let go of the expectations, right? When you stop comparing what you should have had to what you actually have, and you start observing the positive aspects of the things we do have. So we all know that we didn't choose this. And a year ago, if someone would have said, oh, this is going to last a year, we would have started crying for days and days. But this is not for us to choose. What we can choose is what to do with this. And this is very simple. This applies to life itself, right? We can only, I think it was Gandalf, right? Saying we only decide what to do with the time we're given, or something like that. But it does apply. So I think when we start thinking about things in that perspective, we start pretending that this is just like a patch for something else, and we start doing things in the 100%. We start doing things fully, because this is not like a second-hand time that we have. This is our life right now. This is the 100% of our life. So if we can adapt our work and the things we do into things that have meaning within this setup, then ultimately we will be happier people, and we will be better practitioners, because if we are excited about what we are doing, we'll get people to be excited about that. If we are moaning about how terrible Zoom rehearsals are, people will be moaning and they will not enjoy. So this thing about really believing in that, it's not just pretending. This is great. This is a great thing that we can do now, and also that allows us to discover new things, to get creative. Choir rehearsals had been the same since the beginning of times, and there hasn't been any change regarding the way in which choirs rehearsed. And I think what we have had to do this year was to separate what we do from how we do it. And that made us get to the essence of what is it that we do, and how can we still do that in a different way. And I think for us, reflecting about what we do is something very important. I mean, very often we just do things automatically without thinking about it, without reflecting it, just with tradition and practitioners and the way in which we teach. Sometimes we just carry on copying old things, and we forget to reflect on why is it that we do that. And I think this year has allowed us to really put that on the table, and to face that, and to decide, what do we want to do with that? I don't know, and discover, okay, I am not good with technology, but I can do other things and show them on Zoom, or just find ways that work for us, because that's also something that I think it's very important. We learn tools, but then we design our own persona, our own practitioner persona, and that is related to how we are and what we like doing. So there are no two practitioners who are the same, and I think in this year we faced that in a much honest way, because we were also on our own. So in a way, we were possibly able to discover things that perhaps would have never been able to discover. So Shona, would you like to unmute and share, or would you like me to read the comment?
Oh, I think I'm just one thing that I've been struggling with actually the last couple of weeks is this, how we're able to read the room when we're in it. And so you're very aware of people's energies when they enter the room, where people are at and what they might be coming to the room with. And if you're delivering an activity or a warm-up, you can kind of sense if things are going a bit too fast or a little bit, or you need to speed up a bit or whatever it is. And I find that with Zoom, sometimes you don't get any of that feedback. I find it really difficult. So I've been kind of really chatting to a lot of people about that this week, and it seems that everyone's feeling very similar. And the only way around it is to just keep asking people for feedback. But when you're kind of, especially if you've got a bigger group, it's just very hard to tell, if what you're doing is being felt and being wanted. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else feels like that.
Absolutely. How to know if you're pitching it right? How difficult, too easy for them? Yeah, you can't hear them.
I absolutely agree that it is difficult. And yes, one way is just asking and asking and asking. But something that I've done like halfway through the pandemic is, and again, sounds perhaps like very simple. I just got a TV and I use that as a screen. So all of you right now are quite big. And if it was 50 of you, I could see you all without turning. And that for me personally made a huge difference. I feel really different during the sessions when I can just see everybody quite big, and I can see almost which books you have in your bookshelf. And it doesn't have to be anything massive, right? Probably would be good, but just like a normal TV, I just plug it into my computer and use it as a second screen. And I felt, when you are in a room, you give energy, but also you get energy from the participants. I wasn't feeling that as much when I was just using the laptop screen. I was a bit feeling like it was kind of draining my energy. But when I got this, it really made a difference for me in the way I feel during the session, in the way I can read the room, I can pick up on things, I can say bless you to someone because I saw that they sneezed. And I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that when you sneeze and someone says bless you, you feel also that you are there. It changes the way and perhaps if you were a bit like this, you're kind of, okay, no, she is watching me. I am there. It's not just a screen. So those little technical things, just finding ways to make this as easy on us and just finding the right setup for you, depending on the activities you do. Any other ideas regarding this, regarding what we have learned, regarding how we changed some things and how some things are not going to go back to what they were, even if they could?
This came up in a previous group, Shona will know, but how we, the facility of muting ourselves and rehearsing what we're going to do before we're bringing it to the group, that's obviously more difficult in a live situation, unless you've got breakout rooms or something, but even then, that's a bit clunky. You can't do it as quickly. Like an equivalent, no, it's not quite equivalent, is turning out from the circle. Everyone can hear you, but they can't see you, and they can't necessarily see who it is. So face outwards. You're not muted, but you're blinded. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, and also following on that, when you have very large groups of kids, silence is no longer an issue. You don't have to say anything, to tell anybody. And that is going to be something when we come back to those big groups as well, right? Something that we perhaps lost practice with. Or perhaps they will be so far away from each other that they'll have no opportunity. But I just think it's important to keep asking us those questions when we are working now, because I think this idea that this is not just temporary and this is not a patch, it's just like living as if this was the way in which we are going to do it forever. And then when we get the chance to do it differently, we'll see what we want to do and how we want to do it. But I think that idea for me has allowed me to discover other things that we can do here. And if you allow me, I think we should do a bit of singing right now, because you're a bit too comfy. I like people to be a bit on the edge of their chairs. Okay, so we will use the same backing track that we used earlier, and then I will show you the setup I use in case this is useful for you. So we have our hip hop pish track. And we are just going to do some scatting on this. Okay, I will sing something and I want you to repeat it after me. The first pattern goes like this. Da ba doo ba, da ba doo ba. Just try it with me. Da ba doo ba, da ba doo ba. Carry on. Da ba doo ba, da ba doo ba. Good. Now I continue singing that, but I will teach you another one that goes like this. Ba doo ba, ba doo ba, ba doo ba, ba doo ba, ba doo ba. Sing the one. Ba ba doo ba, ba ba doo ba, ba ba doo ba, ba ba doo ba. The second one. Ba doo da, ba doo da, ba doo da, ba doo da. Now sing whichever you prefer. And the third one goes do da, do da, do da, do da, do da, do. Let's sing the number one. Da ba doo ba, da ba doo ba, da ba doo ba. Now the second one. And ba doo ba, ba doo ba, ba doo ba, ba. Now the third one. Do da, do da, do da. And we can always add the do, ch, ch, do, do, ka, do, do, ka, ka, ch, do, do, ch, ch, do, do, ch, ch, do, ka. When you feel you have a good one or you want to share it, just unmute and join. One more round. If you want to unmute, this is your chance. And let's finish with a fade out this time. So whatever it is you're doing, let's do it quieter and quieter. Quieter. Quieter, quieter, and stop. Yeah, there you go. Round of applause to be very. There we were, all singing and improvising together. Fantastic. So regarding tools and that we have discovered, I will now show you how this thing I am using works, just in case you find it useful. I use it in every rehearsal. And it is basically my iPad on GarageBand. So you should be able to see my iPad now. Give me a thumbs up if that is the case. Perfect. Okay, and hopefully you'll see it move as well. So can you see me unmuting things now? muting things. Things that were blue are now gray. Excellent. So what I do is I just create a track. In this case, I chose a drummer from GarageBand, so all the percussion is kind of presetted, and then I added the bass, creating this. Yeah, and you just have it on loop. It goes on and on and on, and then I pre-recorded all 3 vocals. So this is the first one. And I can just mute it whenever I want. Here's the second one. And I can go back to the first one. Do anything I want. Third one. So you become a bit of a DJ. And you leave only the percussion. Yeah. So it's not 100% perfect, but this thing has allowed me to make sure that everybody can sing in harmony in their houses. And also this thing that you would do in an in-person setting with a pianist, which would be that they play on loop and you teach things on top of that rather than teaching them to a silence. And as you were saying before, having this track underneath really makes you keep the flow, keep the energy, keep the everybody on the beat. And I have found this in more difficult music as well. I just pre-record everything and then start sharing that on the iPad. And again, that has been something very, very useful for me in my rehearsals. I don't know if any of you are used to using that loops at all, or any extra things. Or Marcus, what do you use?
Much the same, but I use Logic, which is basically the same as GarageBand. And yeah, I layer up the parts and get them playing along with backing tracks, and then I can mute different things, and yeah, quite similar.
Becca, you were asking how do you get to share the sound from your iPad? On the share screen option, you just press share iPad. That was to share the screen of the iPad, right? If you want to share that, you share iPad, and I share it through AirPlay, and you share sound as well, and then everything comes through.
Did you have to be having Zoom on your iPad to be able... Okay.
No.
I'm not sure about, yeah.
No, so when you are not watching the screen of the iPad, what I normally do is I have an audio device where I have the headphones and the microphone, and I just have this cable. Let me just show you. Just have this one. So I connect it to the audio device and the iPad. So it's like the iPad is like a second microphone, and it just goes through the same. And when you do that, you make sure that the sound and you are absolutely synchronized. Sometimes, especially at the beginning, I think Zoom have already figured this out. But at the beginning, when you shared sound from your computer, it wasn't always in sync with your image. So I wasn't able to conduct as I was sharing the sound. But when you do this from the audio device, it's exactly the same as you. It just comes through the same place as the microphone. Does that make sense? I'm not a super techie person.
I'm not very technical, so
this cable works.
So have you got a sort of audio interface device as well?
Yeah.
Is that...
Let me just...
Sorry.
What?
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So that.
So did you say you can share the iPad screen via AirPlay?
Yes.
Is that because your computer is a Mac as well?
Yeah.
That you're doing Zoom on?
Yeah,
but it has to be.
You could also do it with a cable. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
okay.
when you press share screen, I just get the option iPhone or iPad via AirPlay or via cable.
No, that's good. I've not done that before. That's cool.
And you can use it to record participants too during the sessions, yes. So last week we had a songwriting session, and using the iPad, sharing the screen of the iPad, I could record participants during the session, and we managed to create a track all together, and Una was playing beautiful violin on that too. So that's another possibility. Yes, Shona, question.
So I was just going to ask you a bit more about that, because I think that's been a real difficulty for most people I know. A lot of people are just like getting people to record it into their phones and then send it through to them, trying to find a way around this kind of recording situation.
Yeah, okay. So
Alex, a bit more about that.
The short answer is it doesn't replace any of those things. It's not a tool to make a virtual choir, for example. But let me just share the screen so that you can see what we did. Songwriting workshop. Okay, so I'll share my screen again. Okay, and you're watching the iPad again, aren't you? Great. Okay, so what we did in the during the session is we first chose like our base, our mattress track, and this was chosen by the participants, and they chose this, and this was on the base in which we built the rest of the track. So what I asked them to do was to play with their sound makers while listening to this, to choose what sound maker they wanted to use in our song. So then individually I recorded them with the iPad, so we could do that right now, I can show you later, but one would unmute and I would record them, and this is the result. For example, this is Ellis. And everybody played their sound maker of choice, and then we layered everything up. So I will now show you how everything sounds when you put it together. So this is not, obviously, we are not working with synchronization. It's creating a track, creating it. I think the point mainly was to see that they were part of the track. So this is the final version of the track. And that was all recorded by them during the session on Zoom, on a call. So again, wouldn't be possible to do anything that requires any level of synchronization, but it gives you the idea of building something. And it's yet another activity that we can do on Zoom, involving participants in a different way. So I guess it's all about making participants feel in the same room, making us create experiences, like group experiences, as if we were all in the same room. So just a couple of final thoughts from me, and this has to do with creativity in general, right? So I was just reading about neuroscience, and you might be familiar with this idea that our brain, or its main function is to keep us alive. So anything that shows change, or anything that can represent any sort of danger, our brain will try to avoid that. Things that are stable are safe. Things that are changing are not. But during that adversity, we have to get creative. We have to stretch in ways that we wouldn't normally do. So in a way, I think it's this idea of seizing the opportunity to discover things about ourselves that we wouldn't have normally discovered. And there is one phrase that says, intelligence is the ability to solve problems, which I love. Is what you do with how can you solve creatively in a creative way the problem that you are facing. And I think creativity dares to take risks. It's about going ahead, pushing your limits. And I think during this process, it's important to understand that anything we do and all the mistakes that we can make or any difficulties we may face are just stages for us to build something new. So as someone said yesterday in a talk, it's a success in progress. So just that way of understanding what happens as something that has to be there if we are trying to create something new. Failure is part of the equation, but just keeping in mind that is only a stage. That's not the final point. And also I was thinking, whenever we are facing these sort of scenarios, the importance of sharing ideas, of sharing what you think, of not staying on your own. And I think that places like this, when we come and discuss what we've done, how we felt, how did you solve that, how did you come around with that, it's just what helps us as a society to create something new, to build knowledge. No one builds anything on their own, right? It's all about collective. And I think in a moment where we are basically all apart, finding the ways to share what we are doing, either problems or successes, it's absolutely essential. And I think just to remind ourselves of the importance of sharing. And then two more thoughts. One is that how important the attitude we have in front of something is. And there is this equation that says value equals knowledge plus skills times attitude. So that all the knowledge you can have and all the skills you can have, if you have a bad attitude, will be 0. If you have no knowledge and no skills and a great attitude, that's also 0. So this is not to say that we can just have a good attitude, but anything that you have, if you also have a good attitude, that multiplies the effect. And I think that's super important. And I think we've gone through some difficult times, and we need to be kind to ourselves and allow us to moan when we want to moan, but also to acknowledge that we do have the power to multiply what we are doing, to really make the best of this. And as I said earlier, we always knew that, I think we in this room at least, we know that music makes people's lives better. We know it. We felt that. That's why we do this. And I don't think it was ever as obvious as it was this year, how much people need music, how much people need finding each other and making music together. And I think as long as we are excited about what we are doing, we'll make others be excited about that too. And then that will transfer. And then it's like making the wheel move. And then so I am mainly a conductor, and I always remind myself that the conductor does not make a sound. Right? The conductor is the only musician, or perhaps composer, as conductors don't make a sound. So we depend for our power on our ability to make other people powerful. And this is not my words, this is Benjamin Zander. So I think as long as we continue empowering people through our practice, then our job is done. And time will tell what stays, what changes, what we'll do. But as long as we keep connected with that, we don't lose our essence. I think one of the problems this year was that we were robbed of part of our essence. And if we can come back to this, I think we'll just be able to continue growing, continue learning, continue developing, which is what we have to do, I think.